Watching the progression of an artist can be breathtaking, and the build-up of Bon Iver is no exception to this. Justin Vernon started out in a small cabin, isolating himself from the world, and it eventually led to the critically acclaimed Forever Ago. In that album, the true genius of the artist started to bloom. Forever Ago was very well received from the beginning, and a follow-up was quickly put out the year following. Instead of another album, people were treated to an EP. The one that I'm talking about is Blood Bank. Blood Bank had some big shoes to fill. It was following up such a critically acclaimed album, and because of the newfound attention, this EP had to be of the same level of quality, at the high level of production, and writing as the first album. So what did Justin do? He decided to do something that was unlike the songs that came before it. If you have listened to Blood Bank, you probably know what track I'm about to mention. That track is Woods. Woods was a song where instead of using something like a guitar, or any instrument for that matter, he wanted to use his voice. Woods utilized the various ranges in his voice to perform a one-man a cappella. This new style and technique paid off well. The creativity that went into the song caught the eyes and ears of multiple people. And one person in particular decided to reach out and offer to collab on a future project. This person was Kanye West. One thing led to another, and Justin worked on multiple tracks with Kanye for both My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and Watch the Throne. We're getting a bit sidetracked here, but I believe it's important to mention Blood Bank and what it led to. Because it's important to see not only was Justin working on amazing projects with huge artists, but he was also getting more recognition and more people watching him. At the same time, we could see more of what he was capable of, and how he was branching out to experiment more with his music, especially from the simplistic nature and sound of his first album. Forever Ago was an album that was created by someone who was isolating themselves from the world. It had multiple messages baked into the lyrics, and there was a lot of raw emotion behind them. For this next studio album, it worked out a bit differently. After Justin had success with both his previous album and EP, it was time for the band, Bon Iver, to move on, and not just the man. Whenever you pick up a physical release of an album, or open it on a streaming service, you are usually greeted with the cover of the album. This self-titled album has a really good cover. It was created by artist Gregory Euclid, and it's a beautiful painted rural landscape of nature. It really helps your mind ease into the tracks to come. If you don't know, or just didn't notice, the track titles on the album are named after places, and having a painting depict a rural landscape is just the cherry on top. There are 10 songs pressed on this album. These 10 songs are these right here. As it is with most albums, there's a reason each song was given the name it was given. Let's take a look at the first track, Perth. It's not only the opening song for this album, it was also the first song worked on for it. In 2008, when a music video for the song Wolves was being worked on, the director of the music video, Matt Amato, got a phone call that their best friend Heath Ledger passed away. And Justin was the only one there at the moment comforting him. And Heath Ledger was from Perth. The song Holocene has two things that gave inspiration for the name. There's a bar in Portland, and the geological epoch of the same name. There are also the tracks of Calgary and Minnesota, where you can probably guess what places the songs were named after. Justin mentioned in an interview that each song drifted towards a theme, and they tied themselves to places. Hearing this, it makes sense why each song had a different sound to it, different instruments and techniques used, and why each song just has a different flair to it. Unlike Forever, where you would feel like you're stuck in the same spot, Bon Iver feels like an exploration of the rural landscapes around you. Why don't we talk about the actual music on the album? Justin's sound has clearly evolved from his previous album. The roots of folk have branched out, and they have become an experimental chamber pop that fills your ears now. The experimentation of the music on this album is a huge leap forward compared to what came before it. With more instruments used, new ideas, and more people, we are treated with songs that have an amazing backing track, with things like strings, horns, piano, and so much more. Justin's vocals have also taken a leap forward to be more than just a person simply singing into a microphone. And also, he really kept with the style of using falsettos. There are a few songs in the self-titled that I'd really like to highlight, and there's no better place than to start with the opening song, and one we already brought up earlier, Perth. This song opens the album with ambience that resembles a diner, and it's quickly pushed aside with the entrance of a guitar and the vocals of a one-man choir. This song goes from sounding isolated and nostalgic to becoming what is self-described as a Civil War-sounding heavy metal song. And it's also equipped with a saxophone and horns. Perth was being worked on really early on in Justin's career. And one thing I'd like to mention is that in a few different interviews, the small fact that the title of the song also rhymes with birth is brought up by Justin himself. And it makes the album start at its birth, and when we finally reach the final track, it ends when it takes its final rest. Holocene is the song that caught the attention of critics, and it was nominated for various awards, and it's very well deserving of the praise it gets. Holocene is definitely the highlight of the album for many people. It's a song that paints the idea that people have experiences different from each other, but at the end of the day, they aren't that magnificent. There's this one line that really stands out, and here it is.
And once I knew I was not magnificent.
The song uses multiple instruments to accompany Justin's voice, from opening on just a guitar to hitting a point where vibratones, keyboard effects, and percussion come in. Throughout the song, instruments come in without impeding on what comes before it, and then they leave without taking away your focus. Holocene has so much going on, but it's not overwhelming. The vocals might be hard to catch on your first time, but they're there, and it's an extremely well-written song. It's undeniable how well composed and written the song is, and for being the third track on the album, it builds up the rest of the experience coming up with the later songs. Holocene is more than deserving of the recognition it got, and it's easy to see how it was nominated for Song of the Year. Michicant probably has one of the strongest beginning lyrics on not only this album, but for all of Justin's songs.
I wasn't afraid, I was a boy, I was a tender age.
This song that talks about youth is kind of thrown at you early on. As it progresses, the feeling of being young and oblivious is lost. Everyone grows up eventually. Everyone matures. The simple strum of a guitar is accompanied by a complex layout of various instruments, and every now and then you can hear small little clinks. It's the small things such as this that can add so much more to a song, especially when you notice how much goes into not only the voice, but the instruments as well. It's such a simple, yet relatable song. Finally, there's the song Wash. I don't know if it's just me, but after reading the song title and listening to the song with headphones, the way the instrumental feels like it's rocking back and forth, it kind of reminds me of a washing machine. Wash is a song made about Claire. Not the person Claire, but his hometown in Wisconsin. It's a song that helps to give off the idea that people need to climb out of their homes to grow, and eventually, they come back stronger. Wash is definitely one of the simpler songs on this album, but that's okay. It's a song with a simple instrumental, with extremely strong lyrics that help it hold its own. These are only 4 of the 10 songs present on this album. The other tracks on this album are interesting in their own right, but I just wanted to briefly mention these 4. Bon Iver is an amazing album through and through, and each song has so many deep-rooted emotions and stories. Just like with For Emma, it can be hard to understand the vocals on some of this album, but honestly, that style just works so well for Justin, and this album really holds up against what came before it. This is an album where you can really feel the emotions that went into creating it. Like I mentioned earlier, some songs are from a point where Justin was isolating himself from the world, and some are from when he began reaching out and connecting with others. The lyrics of each song can be vague in what they mean, and when I'm talking about the meaning of a song, it's only one person's interpretation of what is going on. It's okay to get a different message or to feel something else. The true beauty of Bon Iver the artist is how so many different people can connect to the music itself in so many different ways. The composition and sound carry this album to a point where it's more than deserving of the recognition and the awards it received. From everything to the beautiful painting that greets you when you find the album, to the names of the individual tracks. This self-titled album really does give off the rural atmosphere that brought it to life. When you compare this album to the music that came before it, it's definitely an amazing follow-up. This is a stance that's pretty well agreed upon by both critics and listeners. This self-titled album went on to win a Grammy for Best Alternative Music Album. It was also given the nomination for Record of the Year. On top of these two awards, the song Holocene was given a nomination for Song of the Year. To end off this video, I'd like to say, if you haven't listened to this album yet, or even the EP Blood Bank, you really should, especially if you liked For Emma. Bon Iver's self-titled album is amazing from start to finish. And just like with a lot of other artists, it's pretty cool to witness someone finding out where they want to go with their music. The slow increase in experimentation between the first two albums and the EP allowed for the next two albums of II and 22 Million to be great. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.